Welcome back to Right on Four Corners. I'm your host, DelSheree Gladden. I'm a USA Today bestselling author and a high school English teacher. And on this week's episode, we'll be talking to Nan Fischer about her book, Growing a Sensational Garden in the Southern Rocky Mountains. And this is great timing because I'm just starting to think about trying to get my yard in order and rescue it from my dogs. So hopefully this is helpful to a lot of our listeners as well. Nan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nan Fischer. I live in Taos. This book is a culmination of years of nonfiction writing for magazines and the local Taos news. The thing with this is I've done everything in this book. The whole book is conversational. It's all things that I've done. It's a lot of trial and error. And so it's really practical. It's a lot of practical information. And I've done, farming. I've farmed a 350-acre farm. I've been a landscaper. I have a nursery now, nanny plants. I've done pretty much everything. I'm a seed saver. So I've kind of covered all the bases. And it's all in this book. And I guess it's a really good time of year to snag it and see what to do every month.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed the structure of the book because it is divided into the months of the year and what to think about, what to plan for, what to do in each of those months. Before I jump too far into the specific details, as far as how this book came to be, tell us a little bit about how you went from the article writing for newspapers, magazines, and sharing bits and pieces of everything you've learned to putting it together into this book.
That's pretty funny. This is the second edition of the book. And in the first edition, I have a huge page of acknowledgments. And the one at the top is my friend Will Berlin, who said to me after I was posting all the writings that I was doing, he said, I want all this information in one place. And so I thought, well, that's a lot for me to take on. This was years ago. And then another friend of mine had just moved here from Indianapolis, and she said the same thing. And so that was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And that kind of got me to put it into a book format and compile everything. And my friend from Indianapolis, Leslie Bishop, she was the first reader, and she has a PhD in, I think it's ecology. So she knew exactly what I was talking about. She helped me format it. And then I just went from there. We changed the formatting a little bit, but that's how it got to be a book. And then after Leslie did the reading, she left me a lot of notes, and I reformatted it and rewrote it and came up with what we have now, which I get a lot of compliments on it. But also everywhere I ever wrote, I would ask them. There was Nature Path, Organic Foods, Mother Earth News, and the Taos News. I said, you want me to write a monthly what to do for Zone 5? So I had a lot of this information. Aside from having done a lot of it. Because when I was in New Hampshire, I was in also Zone 5. It's very similar here in Taos. And so I had all that information. I had all those, what to do every month. And I had that for a couple of different places. And then, Facebook came along, and I would put things up there. So that's a lot of the information was already there. I had it all. And then when we just decided to make it this monthly calendar type format, it just fell into place. It just really fell into place easily. And then another friend of mine said, I'm adamant about people writing things down. I have garden journals going back 30 years. And I say, write stuff down. And so there's journal pages at the back of each chapter because I want people to take notes, because at the end of the season, you always say, oh, I'll remember that tomato did well. And, come spring, you don't remember that. So if you write it down, it becomes your own little monthly guide to your own microclimate, your own yard. You get really intimately involved with your environment. Just write stuff down. So yeah, it's what to do this month, and then it's journal pages in the back so that you can, here's what I did, here's what I didn't do.
I really liked that the
Here's
journal
what worked,
pages
here's what didn't
were
work.
there. I'm someone who I keep track of stuff on sticky notes and random pieces of paper, and then I lose half of them. And it's not the best
Sticky notes
system.
are only good for so long. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love sticky notes.
I have started keeping some notes on my phone because that at least I know where it's at the majority of the time. But I
Yep.
liked that you guys included the journal pages in there because then it's not going to get lost. It's right there,
Right.
easy to keep track
And
of.
at the very end of the book, it says, dog ear this book, use this book. And when I was formatting it with UNM Press, I said, I want this book to be able to go outside. People can write in it, because I want it to be a big mess, and I want it to be their own big messy book in the end after a couple of years. So that was kind of part of the plan.
Oh, I love that about it. It's something I love plants. I love trying to grow them. I'm not very good at it. I kill a lot of stuff. And a lot of it is, it's like, what was I supposed to do with this one? How often was I supposed to water it? And I
Exactly. Write
just
it down.
yeah, I lose track of stuff, and I my sprinkler system kind of died last year, and it was like, okay,
Oh
well,
no.
I'm not gonna deal with that right now. I was doing all kinds of other stuff, and so it was like, okay, I just need to remember that I need to water, these here, and of course, didn't do very good at that. And so this year, it's like, all right, we need to make a better plan and actually figure out how to keep stuff alive and not have my dogs dig up everything I plant. That's part of it, but.
Yeah, that's hard.
It is, yeah. They're gonna get sectioned off from that because, for one, they're constantly filthy and bringing it in the house, and
Right.
they really love to dig up everything. I'm like, "Okay, guys, this
Yep.
is not working."
Yep.
But
I haven't had a dog for 5 years, but I just kind of like succumbed. I just was like, okay, the yard is yours. And my vegetable garden is fenced off, but the
mm,
rest of it, I'm like, whatever. You're not going to be here forever. It's like, do what you need to do.
yeah.
But he was pretty good about it. But still,
Oh,
he'd like
good.
lay on
Good.
something or, bury bones in it. I find bones everywhere still, 5 years later.
That's funny.
But yeah, I just gave
Oh.
up. It's like, have at it.
Yeah, there's that where you're like, "Well, okay, you guys can have this part," and just, yeah, gonna try to keep them out of one section. We'll see how
Right.
that works this summer. I'm gonna attempt to keep them from destroying everything. But
Right. I don't have any dog advice in the book either. I hadn't thought of
yeah,
that. That's a good one.
that's another problem. Maybe book 2 is how to keep your dog out of your
Next
garden, but
next edition. That's funny.
well, as far as what you do have, you mentioned in your intro that this is all practical. This is stuff you've learned by doing it. And
Yep.
you've come into your extensive knowledge through practical means. And so I wanted to ask
Yep.
you about that because this is not a book that's like, you got to know all of the scientific names of the plants and it's very technical and you're going to need a second book to interpret it. This is what you've done. And it was very easy to read and understand, which I appreciated a lot.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about just how you gained all this knowledge and your path to becoming an expert in trying to keep things alive in really sometimes harsh, changeable, crazy conditions.
Yeah. But I kill things too. Here's a little disclaimer. I kill things too. So I'm sure I lost some things over the winter. But my dad landscaped the yard that we had when I grew up. It was beautiful. It was like an acre cut out of the woods. And it was all native plants, which I didn't realize until I was older. But it was beautiful. And I loved looking at the plants. And I just marveled at them all the time. And then I was maybe, 24, 25, whatever. And I was looking for work. And I just happened to be standing in the health food store and to buy something. And there's a woman in there. And the guy who owned the store said, this woman is the manager of the greenhouse at the Wentworth, which was a big resort. And she says, oh, yeah, I'm looking for people. It was April. So I went there for a year, worked from April to November and in the greenhouse. And we grew everything from seed, everything. There were about, I don't know, maybe 60 flower beds across the property. And we grew all kinds of things, mostly annuals, some perennials, some medicinal herbs. But we did everything. We built the boxes that we started them in. We mixed our soil in big, huge bins. We mixed the soil. I learned how to label things. I learned record keeping. And then we went out and planted everything and then maintained it, mulched it. And we had to hand water. There was no drip irrigation back then. This is 1979. So we had to hand water everything. And then at the end of the season, everybody, we were all going to get laid off. So everybody went and found other work. So I was the only one that worked till Thanksgiving. And so I cleared off all the beds, all these beds. I cleared them all off, put everything in a compost pile. I was taught how to drive a tractor. So then we had this big, huge pile of rotted manure. And I would take scoops of that and drive it over to the beds and dump it and rake it out. So I just took care of everything at the end of the season. And I was the only one. And that was, I tell people all the time, if you want to learn this business, go work someplace for one season. That's all you need to know. Because I just built off of that over the years. But the following year, I went to go get a job, and we were 15 minutes from the University of New Hampshire, which is a really well-known ag school. It's a land-grant university. And everybody said, do you have a degree? Do you have a degree? I said, no. And they said, go to school. So I did, which was stupid because I already knew, so much. But so I went to school because that just seemed to give you credibility. So I did a 2-year program there, and it was all hands-on. And we started in the greenhouse. And then I took soil, it was called structure and function for plants, soil chemistry, entomology, pathology, everything for 2 years. And just dove right into it. I took a weather for a semester, and then I just went from there. I was landscaping. I worked in a 350-acre farm, like I said. I did landscaping for private clients over the years. And then I came out here and moved right onto a seed farm that was here, learned about seed saving. I just keep building on it. Opportunities keep coming, and I just take advantage of them. 10 years ago, I guess, I did seed school online with Bill McDorman, who was the executive director of Native Seed Search down in Tucson. So I did seed school and learned about the history of food and seed saving, and just an incredible education. It was amazing. And so that's where in the book, I do a lot of the history of food because that came out of that interest. So I wrote a lot of food history articles for Mother Earth. And it just keeps building. Every year is different. Every year is different. Even still, I have a nursery and I'm still learning. I'm having a problem with some tomato plants in the greenhouse and I don't know how to fix it. We're working on it and it seems to be fixing itself. But, again, it's just something new to figure out and to write down
Mm-hmm.
and, bring it into next year. Gardening is completely unpredictable. And so you have a series of problems or issues or even successes. And the following year is either build on the successes or fix the problems. There's always something to do because there's always a better way to do it the following year. And I think that's what keeps us going. Every fall, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And then here I am every year. And I think that's because it's all a learning curve still.
And the
That's how I see
reward
it.
to seeing
Yeah.
what you've put all that time and effort into.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy that. It's so nice to see something actually come together or to get to use the herbs you've grown.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, even though I know I'm not very good at it and I need to learn how to keep things alive better. That's something like every time I, ruin something, I'm like, oh, I should just give up on doing this entirely. But I do find the process really rewarding, and then I enjoy trying to keep things alive even when I don't succeed.
It is rewarding when you're like, yay, I did
finally
it.
worked. I know
People come, I've been in my house for 26 years, and when I moved in, I planted native plants all around it. And it's really lush. And I see it as this needs to be fixed. This could be moved. This is overcrowded. But people come, they go, this is so beautiful. This is so lush. And I think, this is 25 years old and I did this. And I just, like in the last 2 years, that's kind of dawned on me that I did this. There was nothing here when I bought this house. And I thought, that's pretty rewarding when I look at it now. It's kind of pretty exciting. But it took me 20 years to realize that.
Well, it's a process that, like you said, it builds on itself over time. It's not something, I think, at least for most people, that you're going to go in one summer and have your perfect backyard or, whatever
Right.
it is, the project that you're working on. It does take that year after year effort of adjusting and redoing, moving. You talk a lot in the book about planning and using your notes from the previous year and putting things in different places each year to work with the soil and help improve it or, not overuse it depending on what the plants are and what they're doing. So there's a lot of, like you said, very practical advice to follow. It gives a lot of information for someone who is either starting at the very most basic, this is the first time they've attempted to plant things, and how to get started. And then I really enjoyed that you also build on that within each chapter. Like, here's how you get started, here's the very basics. But then if you are ready to try something new, if you have run out of space and you want to do vertical gardening or different things like that there's varying levels that people can work with depending on where they're at. It isn't just a beginner's book or just I've been doing this my entire life type of book.
Right.
There's a little bit of everything.
I actually, when I had the first PDF of it from the first publisher, and I sent it to a couple of friends of mine and say, here, tell me what you think. And there were two experienced farmers. One is a commercial greenhouse grower, and the other has a huge farm up in the mountains. And they both said, wow, I learned from that. And I'm like, these people have more experience than I do. That's how I feel. But, we all have different sets of knowledge, and we all have different sets of skills. But, to have these super knowledgeable people say they learned something, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So, yeah, there is a little something for everybody because it is very basic at the same time. It's just a lot of people say, I feel like I'm sitting at your kitchen table having a cup of coffee and we're just talking about gardening. And some of it is just really basic and simple that way. And then it's just a conversation. And then I still talk to all these professional growers and we bounce off of each other all the time. So yeah, it's a wide range of pull what you need from it. And if you're a beginner, you can pull like certain things from it. And then later on, when you have more knowledge and more experience, then you'll see other things in the book that maybe you didn't see the first time around.
As I was going through it and thinking about everything my yard needs at this point, there was a lot that's like, okay, like that's something I can do this year as I'm trying to like get a handle on it again and get things going. But then kind of marking places where it's like, well, I know I'm not going to be able to get to that or get that far this summer, but that's something that I can include in a plan for next year and come back to later. And it's still just right there, which is nice.
Yep.
It's all there, and I can just go back to it as I need it and, just kind of pick the bits and pieces that are going to fit in with what I need to do this year,
Right.
which is really
Right.
nice. And as you'd mentioned, you're in a different zone than I am, but a lot of what you include can be adapted to probably not like wildly different, but like what you're doing there, I can take and adapt to what I'm doing in northern New Mexico. And where you can, you give some advice on that. If your frost dates are a little bit later, then, push this stage back a little bit. And
Right.
that's a lot of information to share and include, which was really nice though, because it's not just for someone living in your exact area and climate. A lot of it can be adjusted a little bit for neighboring climates as well.
Right. And that all came about because I was thinking, this is a long story. I was going to write a book on climate change in the garden. And that's kind of what came of it. It's like, because of climate change, what we normally do in June, we may have to do in May because it's warmer, or we may have to do it in July because it's colder. So you really, because of climate change, we don't have a specific schedule anymore. So it helps to know what to do on either side of the month that we're in. But then that also goes, here in Taos, I'm in a 5B, I think, but up in the mountains, there's a 4. You get up in the mountains and you're in a zone 4, but a little lower down in the valley for me, it's a 6. So it's all these different zones. So you kind of pick and choose what you need to do, because it's not always going to be zone 5 anymore. But yeah, so you can take that knowledge there and apply it to, like you said, you're in a zone 7. So you can, what we're doing in May, maybe you're doing in March. I'm not sure, because I was kind of surprised to find you're in a zone 7. But yeah, a little bit warmer, just adjust it. And maybe the midsummer stuff won't be relevant, but other parts of the year would be.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned as well that even within the area that you're working with, you kind of develop these microclimates as well.
Yeah.
And looking at how to adjust, if you have one side of the yard that's very sunny, you might be able to start doing certain things earlier than the part that, still has a little bit of snow and ice on it.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not ready yet, but
That happened to me last year. The front of my house is really warm, faces southwest, so it's really warm. But then the back side, it was soaking wet and had snow on it last year. And the front of the yard is all cleaned up, and the back side, it did still have snow on it. I'm like, come on, I got work to do. It took a while, but this year it's so dry. It's like I cleaned it out the other day, and it looks good. I hope we get some rain this weekend. So.
Well, yeah, we were talking before we started recording that up here in Farmington, it was hailing and we're supposed to get some rain. And last weekend it was 85 degrees. And so it's like, well, it's often hard to tell what's going on because weather patterns have changed and shifted, and it's a little bit more unpredictable than it used to be.
Right.
But
It used to be challenging to garden here, but it was predictable. Now it's challenging, but it's unpredictable. It's hard. The desert is hard. The pH is bad. The wind is bad. The sun is intense. And the season, well, for us, the season normally is really short. Like we can have June 1st to September 1st. You can maybe count on being frost free, but not always. We had a frost maybe 5 years ago on June 23rd.
Oh, wow.
People are calling me up and go, do you have any tomato plants left? And I was like, no, it's June 23rd. I do not.
Well, yeah, I think our like what's listed as like the last frost date that you're supposed to like, don't plant outside until after this, I think is usually like in the first week of May. And I'm like,
Oh, nice.
I was like, that's
No, not anymore.
often not true most years. Like we're still getting these weird random cold days through the end of May. So I'm like, I'm not going to put things out quite yet, but
there's only so much you can cover too. So
yeah.
to protect things. But I remember back east in New Hampshire, we were planting tomatoes on like May 10th with no cover, no nothing, no problem. It was winter was well over. We didn't have this late frost thing that we have here at 7,000 feet. It's completely different here.
Yeah, well, and one thing that I think this book really makes a good point of is just like really becoming familiar with where you're at and figuring
Yep.
out what your area is going to do as best as can be figured out by anybody.
Yeah.
And,
Anymore.
yeah, building that plan around where you're at and working
Yep.
with your local climate and local plants. Well, it's kind of funny because you get in these desert areas and people still want to have yards and environments that are just not appropriate for here.
Right.
And, when I bought my house a few years ago, it had a lawn and it's got two big trees, and the previous owners had like a big strawberry patch and they had all these things going. And for one, it's so expensive, all the watering to keep up with something
Yes.
like that, and then keeping up with the maintenance of the watering system, and whoever put it in did not do a very good job with the watering system in my yard. And it kind of just, collapsed
Complete
last year.
do-over.
Yeah, and I was just like, why am I trying to keep up with all these things that don't belong here? This is just not an area suited to a big lawn and all of these, water intensive plants. And
Right.
so part of trying to work with my yard and get it a little bit more functional is what makes sense to have in my yard and what is not going to eat up water when we have a lot of drought here, and, is just a little bit more adapted to this environment, and trying to learn about some of the native plants that do well here and don't need gallons of water every day to survive. And that was something that in the book, like, you talk a lot about working with that and learning about your environment and where you're at and what goes here, what makes sense to live in the ground wherever the person reading the book lives. And so for those who maybe are not in this zone but who might want to take a look at the book and then adapt it to wherever they're at, what are good places for people to look for that more detailed information about wherever they are, so they can adapt the advice in the book more closely to their own environment?
For native plants, I would say Judith Phillips, anything written by Judith Phillips has information for all of New Mexico. And she can tell you, according to region, which plants are native and which work best. And she's one of my idols. That I just, put things in the ground. If they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. And they live on, rainwater, and that's it. It's no melt. But I got a lot of my information from her when I first bought this house. I got rid of all my other gardening books. So Judith Phillips, and I think UNM Press also publishes Judith. And in Taos, there's a new book out called, oh gosh, I have to go find it. It's put out by the Native Plant Society in Taos, and it's all the native plants that work well right here. I would advise anybody to get involved with their Native Plant Society chapter where they are, no matter where you live in the country, and figure out what's going to work with the climate, whatever that means anymore. But you'll find out what's the hardiest and what's not the hardiest. And again, it's like you said, it's all an experiment and it's a constant process. But Native Plant Societies are a vital source of information right now. And also get involved with your county extension. They have tons of information about what's good for that county. That's very regionalized, localized, actually. And there's also a Master Gardeners class that the county extensions hold every year. And that's pretty much the education I got in 2 years is compacted down into 8 weeks. And that's everything you need to know about gardening in your very county. So that's really good local information too. I'm trying to think of what else, but I would say those are the main places to go that's going to be suitable for your immediate area, and that's in the whole country. There's Native Plant Societies chapters all through the country, and there's county extensions in every county.
Thank you for that. I also wanted to
Mm-hmm.
ask you about the seed saving. I know there is a group here in my area that I've been interested in checking out. I think the last couple of times I've looked at meetings, they've been at times when I wasn't available. But that might be something that a lot of people aren't terribly familiar with. So
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about what seed saving is and how to get involved in those libraries and exchanges and why people do that. What is the benefit?
The benefit to saving seed is, gosh, how much time do we have? When you save seed from your yard, it's already acclimated to your climate. Years ago, this is maybe 15 years ago, I bought somebody wanted me to grow some herbs for her. So I bought the seed from Johnny's in Maine, and not that it's grown in Maine. But then somebody local gave me some seed, and I grew them both. And the seed that was grown locally did much better, even though Johnny's seed is great. It's one of the best seed companies as far as vigor. But this seed was much better because it was grown locally. It was grown right here in Taos. So that's one thing. It's acclimated already. It'll be more vigorous, and you can save seed from varieties that you want to keep on, just keep the lines going. Sometimes you'll get like a freak plant with some different looking qualities. You may want to like take that seed and keep on developing that into something special. I'm going to back up a little bit. Way back, I went to seed school online with Bill McDormand from Native Seeds, and he retired, and now there's an outfit called Seeds in Common. I think it's seedsincommon.org, and they now have seed school online. And I recommend everybody take that. If you want to learn about seed saving, the history of seeds, the genetics, how to plan your garden for seed saving, how to save certain varieties of seed, it's called Seeds in Common. And they have, I think it's still $40, and it's worth it. I've bought it for many people. Like, here, you have to learn this. And that's the main benefit is you'll get hardier plants, but then you can also be developing your own strains with saving certain seeds from certain plants that you like their traits from. It's really fun. It's really addicting. And I'm not going to say every county, look into doing seed swaps and seed exchanges, look at the Richmond, California Seed Lending Library, I think it's called, because that's where when I started the Taos Seed Exchange, that's where I got a lot of my information was from her. Gosh, I can't think of her name, Anna. It's been so long. But she has all kinds of information. If you want to have a seed swap, she has information that you can print out and use and spread and share. And there's also another place in Hawaii called Nomula, Moola, and she has that's where I really got the idea for the seed exchange stations that I did here. I had seed exchange boxes in about 10 businesses with donated seed that people could go in and trade their seed. And if they didn't have seed to trade, there was a little donation box. And that was a screaming success. I had no idea what was going to happen with it because it was cutting edge back in 2013. But people really enjoyed being able to trade their seed, not waiting for a seed swap. These are in businesses that you can go to anytime they're open. And they're actually at some libraries. And you just go in and you trade your seed. You find new things. I haven't grown this out yet. I'd like to try this. I'm sick of growing this. Let me trade this in for something else. And gosh, people just love that. I got so many compliments on that. And that people could just trade seed anywhere they went. And they didn't have to have anything in order to do that. And I also wrote an article I don't know if I put this in the book or not. I might have pulled information out from it. Was my first article for Grit magazine was how to organize a seed swap. So I don't think that's in the book, but parts of it are. And it just tells you, find a location, find some seed, advertise. That's basically it. And people are chomping at the bit. February and March are great times to have seed swaps.
Oh, that sounds really cool. I'm hoping at some point I'll be able to connect with that group when there's a time that works. But it sounds like that's something that goes on, and hopefully people can find one in their area if they're interested in doing that. But I just looked at the time, Nan, and we are already at the point of starting to wrap up. So I wanted to remind our listeners that the book is called Growing a Sensational Garden in the Southern Rocky Mountains, and that's by Nan Fischer through UNM Press. And Nan, where else can people find you and the book online or reach out if they had questions or wanted to learn more?
My website is nannieplants.com. NANNIE plants, PLANTS.com. There's a contact page there. There's a page about the book, but it pretty much just brings you over to the UNM website for ordering. But there's a contact page there. Just feel free to hit me up with questions or anything. On Facebook, it's called Taos Farm and Garden, and it's very local, but we take people from Southern Colorado, anywhere in this region. If you're from Iowa, you can't come in. Farmington, Durango, Southern Colorado, this whole region, because it's really specific for our area. That's on Facebook, Taos Farm and Garden. So head over there, and lots of knowledgeable people there.
Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and the resources. I think people will find this really helpful, and this is a great time of year to check it out. But thank you for taking the time to visit with us today and share your book.
Thank you.
And we hope to see more from you in the future. I hope you keep writing and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.